I always thought my life with Emily was something out of a dream. We'd been married for 8 years, built a cozy home in the suburbs, and filled it with laughter and the smell of her famous cinnamon bread. She was the kind of woman who lit up a room, blonde curls bouncing as she moved, green eyes that seemed to see right through you, and a laugh that could melt even the iciest of hearts. I'm James, a high school history teacher, and I've never been the flashy type. Steady, reliable, maybe even a little boring, that's me. Emily, though, she was the spark. Everyone loved her, especially me. We met in college, back when I was buried in textbooks, and she was the life of every party. Somehow, she chose me. I still remember the night she said yes to my proposal, under a sky full of stars, her hands trembling as I slid the ring on her finger. 8 years later, I thought we were solid. Sure, we had our little arguments, whose turn it was to do the dishes, why I spent too long grading papers, but nothing serious. Nothing that made me doubt her. Lately, though, something felt off. She'd started staying late at her graphic design job, claiming deadlines were piling up. I didn't mind at first. I trusted her. But then there were the small things. The way she'd hide her phone when I walked into the room, the faint scent of cologne on her jacket that wasn't mine, the excuses that didn't quite add up. I told myself I was paranoid. Emily wouldn't do that to me. Not my Emily. It was a Thursday evening when the first crack appeared. I'd come home early from a staff meeting, expecting to surprise her with takeout from her favorite Thai place. The house was dark, though. No sign of her car in the driveway. I called her, but it went straight to voicemail. "Hey, Em. Just checking in. Got some pad thai for us. Where are you?" I left the message, trying to keep my voice light. Hours passed. No response. By midnight, I was pacing the living room, the food cold on the counter. She stumbled in at 2 a.m., hair mussed, lipstick smudged, claiming she'd been caught up at the office. I wanted to believe her. God, I wanted to, but the doubt had taken root. The next few weeks were a slow unraveling. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong, but I didn't know how to confront it. Emily acted normal, too normal, maybe. She'd kiss me goodbye in the morning, chatter about her day over dinner, even plan a weekend hike like nothing had changed. But her eyes didn't meet mine as often, and her smiles felt rehearsed. I started paying attention to the details I'd ignored before. The late nights, the sudden girls' trips with friends I'd never met, the way she'd jump when her phone buzzed. I wasn't proud of it, but I started digging. One night, while she was in the shower, I grabbed her phone. She'd changed her password, another red flag, but I knew her well enough to guess it. The date of our first trip together to the coast. The screen unlocked, and my heart sank. Texts from Mark, a name I didn't recognize. "Last night was incredible," one read. "Can't wait to see you again," said another. My hands shook as I scrolled, each message a dagger. There were no replies from her saved, but the gaps in the conversation told me she'd been deleting them. Mark. Who was Mark? I racked my brain. A coworker? A client? I didn't want to believe it, but the evidence was staring me in the face. I put the phone back before she finished showering, my mind racing. Confronting her felt impossible. I didn't have proof, not really. Just suspicions and a gut that wouldn't stop twisting. I lay awake that night, her soft breathing beside me a mockery of the life I thought we had. I needed to know more. The next day, I called in sick and followed her. She left for work at 8 a.m., dressed in her usual blouse and skirt. But instead of heading to her office downtown, she drove to a coffee shop on the edge of town. I parked across the street, watching through the window as a man, tall, dark-haired, maybe 40, slid into the booth across from her. They leaned close, laughing, her hand brushing his. My chest tightened. That was him. Mark. I didn't storm in. Couldn't. My legs felt like lead, and my mind was a storm of rage and disbelief. I sat in my car, gripping the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white, watching them through the glass. He reached across the table, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear, and she smiled. A real smile, not the fake ones she'd been giving me. It was intimate, familiar. This wasn't a first meeting. This had been going on for a while. They left after an hour, walking to his car. A sleek black sedan I'd never seen before. She climbed into the passenger seat, and they drove off. I followed, keeping my distance, my heart pounding so loud I could barely hear the radio. They ended up at a motel, one of those cheap, neon-lit places off the highway. I parked in the lot across the street, watching as they disappeared into room 12. The curtains were drawn, but the implication was clear. My wife, my Emily, was in there with him. I don't know how long I sat there. Minutes? Hours? The sun dipped below the horizon, and still, I couldn't move. Part of me wanted to kick down the door, to see it with my own eyes, to scream at her until my voice gave out. But another part, a weaker, broken part, couldn't face it. I drove home in a daze. The image of that motel room burned into my brain. When she got back that night, she smelled of lavender soap, claiming she'd been at a yoga class. I nodded, said nothing, and went to bed early. She didn't notice the tremble in my hands. The next day, I hired a private investigator. His name was Tom, a gruff ex-cop with a no-nonsense attitude. I gave him Mark's description, the car's license plate, and every detail I could muster. "Give me a week," he said, lighting a cigarette. "I'll get you what you need." I didn't tell him I wasn't sure what I'd do with the truth. I just knew I had to have it. Tom worked fast. 3 days later, he slid a manila envelope across my desk at the coffee shop where we met. "You sure you want this?" he asked, his voice low. I nodded, though my stomach churned. Inside were photos, dozens of them. Emily and Mark at the coffee shop, at the motel, walking hand in hand in a park I didn't recognize. There were timestamps, addresses, even a grainy shot of them kissing outside a bar. My throat closed up as I flipped through them, each image a confirmation of what I'd feared. "His name's Mark Reynolds," Tom said, leaning back in his chair. 42, divorced, works in real estate. Been meeting your wife for at least 3 months, maybe longer. They're careful, but not careful enough. He handed me a second envelope, thicker, heavier. "This one's got audio. Recorded a few of their conversations. You don't have to listen, but it's there if you want it." I didn't open that one. Not yet. I paid Tom, thanked him, and drove home with the envelopes burning a hole in the passenger seat. Emily was at work again, so I had the house to myself. I poured a glass of whiskey, something I rarely did, and sat at the kitchen table, staring at the evidence. My mind raced with questions. Why? Was I not enough? Had she ever loved me? The photos mocked me, her laughter frozen in time with him. I finally opened the audio envelope. The first recording was from the motel. Her voice, soft, playful, cut through the static. "You make me feel alive, Mark." His laugh followed, deep and smug. "Better than that dull husband of yours, huh?" She didn't deny it. My glass slipped from my hand, shattering on the floor. The rage came then, hot and blinding. She'd betrayed me, yes, but it was more than that. She'd humiliated me, and I wasn't going to let it stand. The plan formed slowly, piece by piece, as I cleaned up the broken glass. I wasn't a violent man, never had been, but this wasn't about violence. It was about justice, about making her feel the weight of what she'd done. Mark, too. They'd taken my life apart like it was nothing, and I'd rebuild it on their ruins. I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I sat in the dark, plotting, the whiskey bottle my only company. First, I needed more on Mark. Tom had given me the basics, but I wanted everything, his habits, his weaknesses, his secrets. I called Tom again the next morning, asking him to dig deeper. "Anything you can find," I said. "Financials, ex-wife, whatever's out there." He didn't ask why, just grunted and promised results. Meanwhile, I kept up the charade with Emily. I smiled, cooked dinner, asked about her day. She didn't suspect a thing, and that fueled me. She thought I was the fool, but I'd turn the tables. Tom came back 2 days later with a gold mine. Mark wasn't just a sleazy realtor, he had a history. His divorce hadn't been clean. His ex-wife, Lisa, had accused him of hiding assets, and there were whispers of shady deals in his business. Better yet, he was in debt, big debt, to some less-than-savory lenders. "Guy's a walking liability," Tom said. "One push, and he'll crumble." I thanked him and started researching Lisa. If anyone hated Mark as much as I did, it'd be her. I found her on social media, a sharp-eyed woman in her late 30s, living an hour away. I sent her a message, vague but intriguing. I know what Mark's been up to. Can we talk? She replied within hours, agreeing to meet. When we did, over coffee at a diner, she didn't hold back. He's a snake, she spat. Cheated on me too. Took everything I had. I showed her the photos of Mark and Emily. Her eyes narrowed. You want revenge, don't you? I nodded. Good. I'm in. Together, we hatched the first step. Lisa knew Mark's routines. He still used the same gym, the same bars. We'd hit him where it hurt. His pride, his money, his freedom. Emily would come later. I wanted her to watch him fall first, to feel the ground shift beneath her before I closed the trap. The game was on, and I was ready to play. Lisa became my unexpected ally, a woman hardened by her own betrayal and eager to see Mark pay. We met again the next day, this time at her small apartment cluttered with moving boxes. She was still piecing her life back together after the divorce. Over cups of bitter instant coffee, she laid out what she knew about Mark's vulnerabilities. He's obsessed with his image, she said, tapping a chipped mug against the table. Loves being the big shot, fancy car, tailored suits, charming everyone. But it's all a front. He's drowning in loans, and his business is a house of cards. I leaned forward, absorbing every word. So we expose him, I said. Make it public. Make it hurt. Lisa grinned, a sharp edge to it. Oh, we can do better than that. He's got enemies, creditors he's dodged for months. If they knew where to find him, they'd come calling. She pulled out a folder from a box, stuffed with old emails and bank statements she'd kept from their marriage. He thinks I destroyed these. I didn't. The plan took shape. Lisa had names, 2 loan sharks Mark owed tens of thousands to, men who didn't take kindly to being ignored. I'd use Tom again, feeding him the details to track Mark's movements and tip off the creditors anonymously. But I wanted more than just financial ruin for him. I wanted him humiliated, stripped of that smug confidence I'd heard in the audio. Lisa suggested we stage something, a scene he couldn't talk his way out of. He's at the gym every Tuesday, she said. Let's give him a show. Meanwhile, I kept up the facade with Emily. She'd come home each night, chattering about her day, oblivious to the storm I was brewing. I'd nod, smile, even hold her hand, all while picturing her with him in that motel room. Fueled me, kept me sharp. She mentioned Mark once, casually. Oh, Mark from work says hi. And I nearly choked on my coffee. Tell him hi back, I said, my voice steady. She didn't catch the venom in it. Tuesday came and Lisa and I were ready. Mark's gym was one of those upscale places with glass walls and overpriced smoothies, the kind of spot where he could strut around like a peacock. Tom had confirmed his routine. 6 p.m., an hour of weights followed by flirting with the staff. Lisa and I parked nearby, watching as his black sedan pulled in. Here we go, she muttered, pulling a wig from her bag. A cheap brunette thing she'd bought for this. I handed her a stack of flyers we'd printed. Mark Reynolds, deadbeat and cheat, complete with his photo and a list of his debts, sourced from Lisa's files. She slipped out, blending into the evening crowd, and started handing them out near the gym's entrance. I stayed in the car, heart pounding, as people took the flyers, some laughing, others frowning. A few gym-goers recognized him from the photo. One guy even waved it at Mark through the glass as he lifted weights. His face went red, then pale. He stormed outside, snatching a flyer from someone's hand, and I saw the panic set in. Lisa was already back in the car, grinning. Step 1, she said. That night, Tom called. Your boy's got visitors. 2 guys in a beat-up truck showed up at his place an hour ago. Looked pissed. The creditors had taken the bait. I imagined Mark scrambling to explain. His charm useless against men who didn't care about his excuses. Felt good, but it wasn't enough. Emily still didn't know I knew, and I wanted her to feel this too. I started dropping hints, small, subtle ones. Heard about some guy named Mark getting into trouble, I said over dinner. She froze, just for a second, then laughed it off. Weird coincidence, she said. I smiled. She had no idea. The next phase was riskier, but Lisa was all in, and her enthusiasm was contagious. Mark's business relied on trust, clients who thought he was a slick, successful realtor. We decided to dismantle that. Lisa still had access to an old email account he'd used during their marriage, one he'd never bothered to disconnect her from. She logged in and found a goldmine. Messages to shady contractors, promises of kickbacks, even a few veiled threats to clients who'd backed out of deals. He's sloppy, she said, scrolling through. Always was. We crafted a mass email using his own words against him. Lisa tweaked it to sound like him, arrogant, unapologetic, then sent it to every contact in his address book. Clients, colleagues, even his accountant. Time to come clean, it read, followed by screenshots of the worst emails. We hit send from a public library computer, untraceable. Within hours, Tom reported chaos. Mark's phone was blowing up, his office flooded with cancellations. One client had even called the cops, suspecting fraud. Emily came home late that night, distracted. Rough day at work, she muttered, avoiding my eyes. I pressed her, casual as ever. Oh, what happened? She hesitated, then said, just some drama with a coworker. Nothing big. I knew she was lying. Mark must have told her about the mess. I pictured him ranting to her, sweating through his perfect facade, and it made me smile. Hope it works out, I said, pouring her a glass of wine. She didn't notice my hands were steady now, the rage replaced by cold purpose. Lisa called the next morning. He's losing it, she laughed. Saw him at the bar last night, drunk and yelling about whoever's out to get him. Clients are dropping him left and right. I felt a surge of satisfaction, but it was still just the beginning. Mark was crumbling, but Emily was the heart of this. I needed her to see him fall, to feel the betrayal turn back on her. I decided it was time to tighten the screws on Emily. She'd been jumpy all week, checking her phone more than usual, snapping at me over nothing. I kept my mask on, playing the oblivious husband, but I started leaving clues. One night, I accidentally left one of Tom's photos on the kitchen counter. Emily and Mark at the coffee shop, her hand on his arm. She found it while I was in the shower. When I came out, it was gone, and she was pale, stammering about needing to run an errand. Everything okay? I asked, all innocence. Fine, she said, too quick. I let her go, knowing she'd call him. Tom had tapped into Mark's phone by then. Nothing legal, but I didn't care. He played me the recording later. Emily's voice, frantic. James had a picture of us. What do we do? Mark, slurring, snapped back. He's bluffing. He's too pathetic to do anything. I clenched my fists, but their fear was delicious. She came home an hour later, claiming she'd gone for groceries, though her hands were empty. I didn't call her on it. Not yet. Lisa and I met again, refining the endgame. Mark was on the ropes. Creditors hounding him, business tanking. But I wanted him broken before I turned to Emily. Lisa suggested a final blow. His car, his pride and joy. He's got no money to fix it if it's gone, she said. Late that night, we drove to his place. He was out, probably drowning his sorrows again, and the sedan sat in his driveway. Lisa slashed the tires while I poured sugar syrup into the gas tank, silent and methodical. By morning, he'd be stranded, another piece of his life in ruins. The fallout was immediate. Tom sent me a photo the next day. Mark standing beside his wrecked car, screaming into his phone, neighbors gawking. His creditors had shown up again. Word was they trashed his office when he couldn't pay. Emily didn't mention it, but I saw the strain in her. She barely ate, her eyes darting to me every time I spoke. I kept the pressure on, subtle but relentless. Heard some realtor got his car totaled, I said over breakfast. Karma, huh? She choked on her coffee, mumbling something about bad luck. I met Lisa that afternoon. He's done, she said, triumphant. Lost his biggest client today. He's got nothing left. I nodded, but my focus was shifting. Mark was a shell now, broke, humiliated, alone. It was Emily's turn. I wanted her to confess, to beg, to feel the weight of her lies. I started leaving more evidence. A motel receipt on her dresser. A scribbled note with Mark's name in my handwriting. She stopped sleeping, pacing the house at night, thinking I didn't hear. One evening, she cracked. "James," she said, voice trembling. "We need to talk." I turned, calm as ever. "About what?" she faltered, tears welling up. I made a mistake." I waited, letting her squirm. "With Mark," she whispered. "It's over now, I swear." I stared at her, the woman I'd loved, and felt nothing but ice. "Tell me everything," I said, and she did, sobbing through the details. Months of meetings, lies, promises she'd never leave me. I listened, silent, plotting her punishment as she spoke. Mark was ruined. Now it was her turn to fall. Emily's confession hung in the air like smoke, thick and choking. She sat across from me at the kitchen table, her hands twisting a napkin into shreds, tears streaking her face. "It didn't mean anything," she kept saying, as if that could erase the months of deceit. "I was lonely, James. You were always so busy with work. And Mark, he listened." I stared at her, my jaw tight, letting her words pile up like kindling. She thought this was the worst of it, spilling her guilt. She had no idea I'd been steps ahead, watching her unravel. I leaned back in my chair, keeping my voice low, steady. "How long, Emily? How many times did you not mean it?" She flinched, stammering through half-answers. 3 months, maybe, for a handful of meetings that turned into more. She swore it was over now, that Mark's collapse had scared her straight. "He's a mess," she said, almost pleading. "I ended it. I want us to fix this. Fix this." The phrase echoed in my head, hollow and absurd. There was no fixing what she'd shattered. I stood, pacing the room, letting her stew in the silence. She watched me, desperate for a reaction. Anger, tears, anything. But I gave her nothing. Not yet. "I need time," I said finally, turning away. "Sleep in the guest room tonight." She nodded, sniffling, and shuffled off, thinking this was a pause, a chance to rebuild. I waited until her door clicked shut, then poured myself another whiskey. Time wasn't for me to forgive. It was for me to plan. Lisa texted me later. Heard she cracked. "What's next?" I smiled into the dark. "She thinks she's safe," I typed back. "Let her." Emily's confession was just the opening I needed. She'd handed me the rope. Now I'd tie the noose. Mark was a husk, but she still had her job, her friends, her pride. I'd take it all, piece by piece, until she was as empty as I'd felt that night I saw them at the motel. The next morning, I played the part of the wounded husband, quiet, distant, but not hostile. Emily tiptoed around me, making coffee, offering small apologies in every gesture. I accepted the mug she handed me, said nothing, and left for work. She thought I was processing, maybe even softening. In truth, I was meeting Tom. He'd been tailing her since her confession, and he had fresh dirt. "She called him last night," he said, sliding me a transcript. "Told him, you know, begged him to stay quiet." I read it, my blood simmering. "James won't do anything," she'd said to Mark. "He's too good for that. Too good." The irony stung, but it was useful. She underestimated me, and that was her mistake. Tom had more. Emily's boss, a stern woman named Claire, had no idea about the affair, but the company had a strict policy on personal conduct. "One whisper of this," Tom said, "and she's out." I nodded. "Make it happen." That afternoon, I sent Claire an anonymous email from a burner account. Photos of Emily and Mark, timestamps overlapping with work hours, a polite note about concerns over professionalism. I didn't need to see the fallout to know it had hit hard. By evening, Emily came home early, pale and shaking. "I got suspended," she whispered, collapsing onto the couch. "Someone sent pictures to Claire. I don't know how." She looked at me, searching for comfort. I shrugged, cold as stone. "Sounds rough." I said, and walked away. She didn't suspect me, not yet. Lisa called, giddy. Heard she's on the ropes. Job's gone. Not yet, I replied. But it will be. We moved to the next step, her friends. Emily's social circle was tight-knit, a gaggle of women who'd always adored her. I'd used that adoration against her, turned their loyalty into judgment. I started with Sarah, Emily's best friend since college. She'd always been sweet to me, the kind of person who brought casseroles when we moved in. I called her, voice heavy with fake hesitation. Sarah, I need to talk. It's about Emily. She met me at a diner, concern etched on her face. I laid it out, carefully edited truth, enough to shock without implicating myself. She's been seeing someone else. Months. I found out last week. I showed her a photo, let her gasp and clutch my hand. She told me it's over, I said. But I don't know what to believe. Sarah's eyes welled up, torn between loyalty and disgust. She never said a word, she murmured. I shrugged, playing broken. Just thought you should know. Word spread fast. By the next day, Emily's phone was buzzing with texts. Angry ones, I'd bet. She didn't tell me, but I saw her pacing, muttering to herself, her world shrinking. At home, I kept the pressure on. I moved my things to the guest room, left her alone in our bed. She'd try to talk, to bridge the gap, but I'd cut her off. Not now, I'd say, sharp enough to sting. Her job called that afternoon. Suspension turned to termination. She sobbed in the living room, and I watched from the hallway, silent. They said I'm a liability, she choked out. I nodded, offering nothing. Her career, her passion, gone in a flash. She still didn't see my hand in it. Lisa suggested we push further. Her reputation, she said. She's got nothing left to stand on. I agreed. Emily had always been the golden girl, perfect wife, perfect friend. I'd strip that away, let her feel the isolation she'd forced on me with every lie. The final blow to Emily's social life came through a group chat leak. I'd gotten Tom to hack her phone. Another gray area move I didn't blink at. He found old messages to Mark, gushing about their time together, mocking me in ways that made my stomach turn. James is so predictable, one read. You're the thrill I need. I sent them anonymously to Sarah, who shared them with the rest of the group. The fallout was instant. Emily's friends, her lifeline, turned on her. Their texts a flood of betrayal and scorn. She came to me that night, frantic. They hate me, James. All of them. Someone sent these awful messages? She held up her phone, the evidence of her own words staring back. I looked at her, feigning surprise. What did you say to him? She stammered, caught, then broke down. I was stupid. I didn't mean it. But she had, and we both knew it. I walked away, leaving her to drown in the wreckage. Mark, meanwhile, had vanished. Tom said he'd skipped town, chased out by creditors and shame. Emily didn't know that yet, but I'd make sure she did. I left a newspaper clipping on the table the next morning. Local realtor flees amid scandal. She saw it, went white, and said nothing. Her lover was gone. Her job lost. Her friends turned. She was alone now, just as I'd been that night in the motel parking lot. I met Lisa one last time. She's got nothing, she said, satisfied. You done? I shook my head. One more thing. Emily's pride was in tatters, but I wanted her to face me, to see the man she'd underestimated. The final act was coming, and it'd be mine alone. I waited until the weekend. Emily was a ghost in our house. Quiet, hollow, jumping at shadows. I'd stripped her life bare, but she still clung to the hope I'd forgive her, that we'd rebuild. That hope was her last illusion, and I'd take it. Saturday night, I sat her down in the living room, the air heavy between us. We're done, I said, flat and final. She blinked, confused. What? I've known about Mark from the start, I said, watching her face crumple. I followed you, hired someone, watched you lie to me every day. Her mouth opened, but no sound came. I kept going, voice like steel. I ruined him, Emily. His car, his business, his life, that was me. And you? Your job, your friends, this house, I took it all. You're nothing now. She stared, horror dawning, as I stood and tossed divorce papers on the table. Sign them. Get out. She sobbed, begged, but I was deaf to it. I'd packed her bags already, left them by the door. You thought I was too good to fight back, I said. You were wrong. She signed, hands shaking, and I watched her leave, a broken figure under the porch light. The house was mine now, silent and empty. I poured a whiskey, sat in the dark, and felt the weight lift. Revenge wasn't sweet, it was cold, precise, and mine. And it was enough.